Hey everybody, Scott Roberts with Nichols Wealth Partners, here to talk to you about something that everybody loves talking about, and that's life insurance. So last time we talked about informal underwriting, what it is, why we use it, and I was going to try to do underwriting. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't seen that, go ahead and check out that video on our website. But I was going to try to cover underwriting in just 2 parts, but I think we need 3 parts. So today we're going to talk about some underwriting challenges that we run into, and then next time we'll talk about some insights for successful underwriting. So let's get started. Lots changed in the last 30 years since I got into this business, and one of the things is that underwriting used to be both science and an art, but it's increasingly data-driven now. It's much less about really getting to know the insured, and it's more about the metrics and scoring and just going down a list, and you get points off for this and points off for that, etc. So there's also increased access to information. So it used to be where, they would do the motor vehicle report and also check out something called the Medical Information Bureau, which is the MIB, which interestingly started in 1899, so it's been around forever. And it's basically a repository of information where all the insurance companies are sharing information to help make accurate decisions about underwriting. So they still do that, obviously, but now you've got prescription drug databases, electronic health records are being used, and increasingly credit reports are being used. The idea being that somebody with bad credit is probably a higher risk for life insurance as well. There's also been a huge impact of health insurance. And the reason for that is the notes in doctors' records, they're written in a way so that insurance will cover a procedure or a medication or a testing or something like that. But by doing that, it actually creates problems. So I'll give you a real world example. So somebody goes to their concierge doctor. This was a client. And at the end, it's a concierge doctor, so they say, hey, is there anything else, you want to talk about or mention? And the client says, well, I've been coughing a little bit more than what seems normal. And it really wasn't that big of a deal. It had been temporary, but, they mentioned it. And so the doctor then orders a chest x-ray, but there has to be a reason for doing the chest x-ray. And then if you order a chest x-ray for that type of thing, there needs to be some follow-up with an ENT and also maybe even a gastroenterologist. So when we get into the underwriting, they're like, this sounds very serious. Why didn't you do the follow-up? And all sorts of things. So things like that can make it difficult. And it's just because things are written in a way so that health insurance will cover a procedure. There's also an impact of increased litigation. So multiple tests are recommended, many seemingly for what I would call CYA purposes. They're often not completed. I've had situations where clients will say, yeah, the doctor recommended that test, but said I really didn't have to get it done, which so it just creates a problem, something that we have to deal with. There's also what I would call e-problems, so problems from using electronic records. So a lot of times there can be incorrect notations due to drop-down menu errors. A real-world example, had a client who was applying for life insurance, and then they wanted to know how long she had had cancer. And of course, she'd never had cancer. It was the mother who had had cancer. But when somebody was entering the information into the records, they hit the drop-down menu the wrong way. And so fortunately got it cleared up, but it was just more time and effort to get that done. Something else that happens is that notes get carried forward longer than they really apply. So it can create an incorrect medical trend. Real life example again is a client was out mowing the lawn, got overheated, ended up fainting, hit her head, went to the hospital, and somebody at some point prescribed seizure medication. So now, combined with a fall, it's in her records that she has seizures. That got carried forward for several medical visits that she had been prescribed seizure medication. And so that was something that we had to deal with. So lots of different things can pop up with electronic medical records. Here's a big one, snoring. And I do mean snoring. And this has been big like in the last 10 or 15 years. And what insurance companies, they're concerned with sleep apnea diagnosis, but not on its own. They're usually concerned when it's combined with some cardiovascular or diabetes issue. And especially if there's a sleep study that's been recommended. And of course, in order to get the sleep study covered by health insurance, it's written in a way that it sounds very serious. And I've literally had situations where husband goes in, says, my wife mentioned that I snore, and then everything goes off the rails because of that, because everything gets documented a certain way, etc. So that's a big one that we've had to deal with. But some things just never change. And one of those is if you have a private pilot license, that's something that compared to the rest of the population, you're at higher risk. And so most insurance companies are just going to put what they call a flat extra onto the policy. And that means it's just an extra amount they add to the premium. So if that's a situation, you can consider insuring the non-pilot spouse if that's possible. So that's one thing. And then another thing that never really changes are conditions where for the doctor and the insured, it doesn't seem like it's very serious, but insurance companies look at it and they are concerned. So one of those things being maybe slightly elevated liver enzymes. The doctor's not concerned, but insurance companies are worried it might point to something more serious. Another one, and this is bigger and bigger the longer I'm in the industry, is a diagnosis or a notation of mild anxiety or depression, and maybe they're taking some mild dose to help them cope with that. Again, the doctor and the client, they're not worried about it, but insurance companies can be worried about it. So this by no means was a comprehensive list of all the challenges that we deal with, but there are certain challenges that pop up from time to time, so I wanted to make sure that we kind of ran through those. Now the good news is that we are able to deal with those, and next time I'll go through some insights on how to have successful underwriting. So thanks for your time and have a great day.